3D animation is one of the most intense and complex tasks that you can ask a computer to perform. And because of that, when working in 3ds Max, it's vital that you always be conscientious of ways that you can lighten the load. You see, as your scenes continue to get larger and larger, Max will constantly be pushed to do more and more. And the more you shove down the program's throat, well, the more likely things are going to start slowing down. Your computer, no matter how fast or how much RAM you have, will begin to start showing signs of fatigue. And that means when you move something, it'll take a little longer before it's ready for the next move. And when you go to take colored pictures, a process referred to as rendering, well, the picture will take longer to complete. Even when it's time to save your file, that process slows down too. Everything becomes harder to accomplish. It'd be like going on an uphill hike with 50 pounds in your backpack instead of 5. That 50-pound load would certainly make you work a lot harder, right? Well, Max is the same way. The more you add to its backpack, the more you expect it to gobble up, the tougher and slower the process becomes. And all of a sudden you're waiting instead of working, and nobody likes that. So the question then becomes, are there things that you can do to lighten the load? The answer is absolutely. These little lines you see on the ball are referred to as segments. They control a couple of things: how smooth or blocky the object is, and just how hard the computer has to work to do its job. Now, some jobs require you to create objects that consist of hundreds, if not thousands, of those little white lines. Creating a detailed character for a feature film would be a perfect example. Other jobs, like working on a video game, will demand that the line count be kept to a minimum simply so the game can play in real time. So above all else, realize that different jobs will have different requirements. But even with that understanding, it'll always be important for you to think as light as possible. Creating objects that have the detail they need, but using the least or fewest amount of lines to achieve that detail. Remember, as the number of objects in your scene go up, even the light ones, the one with just a few lines, will add up to what Max has to calculate and display. Notice also that Max only displays one of its viewports in what is referred to as shaded mode, meaning that you can see the surface or the skin. You can see that in the lower right-hand view. All the other 3 views are by default displayed in what is called wireframe, representing a wire or line-only view of your scene. Now, why do you think that's the case? Well, the answer ought to make sense. It's less for Max to have to calculate, just less to slow down the process. Now, it doesn't mean that all your views can't be in shaded mode, or all the views in wireframe mode for that matter, as we've done here. It's just a matter of the way that Max sets up the interface to try to work as efficiently as possible, yet still give you the information on the screen that you need. Now, those are just 2 of the issues you need to be aware of in your attempt to optimize your workflow. Those issues being the line count and the way the viewports are displayed. Other things to take into consideration: how many lights in your scene cast shadows? How many objects have a bumpy or a reflective surface? And here's a big one: how many special effects you've added into your scene, things like explosions and smoke and fire. Each of those issues, if not monitored, is capable of bringing your scene to a complete standstill. So that'll give you something else to store away in that list of things to remember. Lighten up on what Max has to deal with whenever possible. Again, try to optimize your scene at every turn. Now, sometimes those heavy objects, those bumpy surfaces and shadow casting lights, they're just necessary. There's really no way of getting around them. But other times, just working a little smarter and thinking ahead a bit can really pay off in both speed and efficiency. In our next video, I'd like to introduce you to a great way to get answers to your questions directly inside Max. The software is one of the most comprehensive built-in help systems in the business, and you need to know how to get the most out of it. Let's go take a look.